Look podcast, man. We hope you guys had a great new year. Hope you guys didn't miss us too much. We were gone for about a week or so, kind of enjoying vacation, but we are back. We're excited to be here. And before we started, definitely want to shout out our fan. We was in Rome. Our general manager Graham let us know. One of the fans was there, basically, said, our kid, he's underrated and overlooked. So that was kind of a surreal moment. It means people are tuning in and watching us. So we definitely appreciated that. It's definitely pretty cool news to hear that from, a fellow fan. But how you feeling in the new year, Craig?
It's good. Now that was the highlight, I think, of the weekend up in Rome. Getting to meet a fan. I think we got a big year ahead of us. I think it's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
But that was awesome, and I just had a great time in Rome. I think that is such a fun place. It reminds me of Athens, but less bars, less craziness, and just really unique city. So staying there for 3 days with everyone was a ton of fun. The weather turned out to be great. So Georgia League Classic was outstanding.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. I enjoyed it. I caught my first ever game, color commentary. That was super dope. Being
And that
able to
was the
see the
best game
seniors.
of the week, I thought. The senior game was really competitive
It was
and
back and
just
forth.
outstanding.
Yeah, I agree. It was back and forth, and then it came down towards the end. And I thought Ben Guthrie did a lot for himself in that game, throwing those 4 touchdowns. I thought he really stood out in my opinion. But nah, man, that was super fun. I agree. Rome is definitely different, and like you said, the weather couldn't have been any better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was nice the entire time. I changed outfits a million times, but no, it turned out to be great on game day too. But just back to the senior game, what Ben Guthrie was able to do, he really shone on that stage. Everyone watching the game was really impressed. I thought he did a lot for himself. We saw what he did at Alpharetta, but just in the All-Star game setting, the plays he was making, he's a true competitor. And I think when we talk about Georgia Elite next year and kind of who's shown in this past year's game, I mean, he's right up there. I thought Bakari Swain also from Central Carroll, the speed he showed, he's going to South Carolina. I mean, just seeing him in person, now I'm going to watch him with the Gamecocks because he has that next level speed and ability. He was breaking away those big plays. And so I thought those were two of the guys I thought of the best week. I mean, even at practice, it was just a lot of fun seeing guys make some big catches, all the different schools represented, and it was awesome.
Yeah, it was. And another guy was Cam Vaughn. He's actually on the All-State honorable mention list, who we're going to mention in a second. But I thought he did really good in camp and during practices. He really impressed a lot of coaches. But yeah, I think Guthrie did a lot for himself. And I'm actually got something to tie that into later on when we talk about the national championship and we talk about Stetson Bennett. I'm going to tie that whole thing in. But I thought he did a lot for himself in that game. He played very well. I thought Keegan Stover, too, in his limited time. Wish he would have got some more reps, definitely. But I thought Stover as well played exceptionally well with the couple drives that he had, was able to get them in the red zone, converted to a rushing touchdown. I think if he had more opportunities, he would have showed even more. But I thought Keegan Stover from Rabun County really impressed as well.
Yes. And one of the things we were mentioning about the All-Star game is tough because you get momentum, then you come out of the game, a different quarterback comes in. Every time Keegan was in, though, he kept them alive on drives. He was under a lot of pressure, but he was able to really buy himself time in the pocket. Obviously, Ben Guthrie did the same thing, but I was impressed with his size. So with him, he used to be at West Forsyth. Then he went down, competed in Class A this last year at Rabun County, Class A Division One. And so that's a big deal for him. It's like, okay, we've seen what he did this year against that competition, but he came out there. I mean, those were tough plays. He is a very tough kid, and I think Matt said it, Brandon said it. I mean, he proved that if you want a quarterback that's going to be able to keep the offense moving, make the right decisions, he was definitely a standout, Keegan Stover.
For sure. Definitely think it was. And yeah, we just wrapping up. That's where we kind of ended our 2022 was at the Georgia League Class. A lot of players, had some good games. Eighth graders. Thought Elam Rom had a great game as the eighth graders quarterback. He has a bright future ahead of him. Tommy Lafayette, the sophomore, really showed me, impressed me with his very physical running ability, showcased his physicality, his strength. I thought he had a game in camp as well. So those are just some guys going into next year to kind of look out for. But Craig, where you want to start, man? You want to start with the All-State list? You want to start with some major offseason moves and transfers?
Yeah, let's start with the All-State, and then we'll kind of talk about what 2023 is going to look like. But I mean, up in 7A, Julian Lewis, the only freshman on that list. I think that's a big deal for him. Get that first team All-State for quarterback. Really significant. And I mean, the future is so bright with him. That was their first ever season in 7A. And when we were breaking down our top 10, the score top 10, I said, he deserves to be on that list, not only because of the great play, but he single-handedly helped elevate the entire state this year, just playing in these big games, having the big performances, even in the state championship, nearly passing for 600 yards. Yeah, Mill Creek was all over him. They lit up the scoreboard, but he was just such a competitor. So it will be exciting with these next few years with him. I think he has the potential to blow up as one of the biggest prospects to come through the state.
Yeah, and we've had definitely several names on that list that have come up. We know Trevor Lawrence from Cartersville, Joshua Dobbs from Alpharetta. Certainly been a lot of great QBs that have come through the state of Georgia. I know, Craig, you probably know way more than I know for sure, but those are some of the few. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree. That's the name that stands out. Kyrie Spain. When we talked earlier this year, I was just getting to know you, Craig, and you were doing your show, and you had Eric Godfrey on, I think, a couple times this season. And he told us, like, prior to the season, before Corky Hill Classic game, he said, this is a player you should look out for. And now he's on the All-State team, Kyrie Spain. He had a great season, 2,383 yards rushing. Really kept his legs going, led by that great offensive line. Next year he comes back. We see what happens with the quarterback situation, but they're going to have him. They're going to have Mike Matthews, who I think is a 5-star, really good receiver. I think he's still uncommitted about where he's going to go. But you bring back those two with your offense, you're going to look pretty good. So I think his offer should start to kind of ratchet up some. He had a really good, I think, junior season. I think he really showed his talent and what he could do. So that was a name that stood out to me. Bryce Hicks, guy that made our top 10 list. Underrated. He's not a very big guy. He's only about 5'8". But, I mean, if you're looking for a guy that can do it all, Joey King raved about him as the kind of they're including Julian Lewis, being able to, defend and play defensive back, being able to catch it out of the backfield, being able to run the ball, being able to bounce off tacklers. That was another name that kind of saw on the list. And obviously Jamal Anderson from Mill Creek, underrated, but he's going to a major time school. I think he's going to Clemson, if I'm not mistaken. But a guy that just really made a difference maker. He had the block kick in the state championship game. Really played phenomenally. He's a guy that's impressed all season. He's flying around the ball, a sure tackler, read fit gaps well, hats to footballs. I mean, another guy that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I want to go back to Kyrie Spain, though. Not only did he have a great junior season, he was incredible for them last year as a sophomore. Parkview was really a passing offense.
Yeah.
Zion Taylor ended up leaving. They had Mike Matthews. He went to Norcross, of course, but Kyrie broke 100 yards every single game this season, averaged about 230 yards. Think about how valuable it is when you have a running back in 7A that's going to go for 100 yards every single game. He can run it tough. I mean, he balanced out that offense. They did have some kind of uncharacteristic losses this year. Obviously, it wasn't his fault. They lost to Brookwood, lost to Newton, end up beating Grace, and then fall short in the playoffs. But I think him coming back, I mean, he's just a reliable running back. He has a chance to be one of the top backs in 7A next year. And then just back to Bryce Hicks. He's such an incredible playmaker. You look at what he did in the playoffs especially. He came up so clutch for them. The interception against Walton right before the half, that was a just completely deflating play for them to kind of keep them in a comfortable margin. And then against Colquitt County, he takes 38 carries and just
205 yards.
It's unbelievable. 38 carries. That's something that's unprecedented. And then in the state championship, he basically turns into a receiver out of the backfield. So look for him to just have another phenomenal year. And they're saying that Bryce Hicks, what they saw from him last year, he might be the best player Carrollton's ever had. And that's coming from longtime Trojans fans.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that does it all. And another guy, last guy on our list, he also made our top 10 was Jeremy Helinski. He's an honorable mention. But again, I think a guy that stepped up big this year, had a great season. I like what they're doing over there in Walton. He's going to bring back a lot of his talent this upcoming season. Makari Botifer is going to be back. I believe Ashton Woods is going to be back. He's going to also have Wyatt Sonderman is going to be back. Cameron Lloyd's going to be back. So he's bringing back a lot of his talent and his weapons back to the team. So, I mean, look for them offensively, not to really miss a beat. I mean, they did lose Aiden Jackson. I think Hunter Till is a junior or senior.
He's a junior too.
Yeah, Hunter Till too,
and
the tight end.
Hecklinski both got held back in the 7th grade.
Yep.
But you look at what Hecklinski did. He really didn't have any big 5-star, 4-star receivers. This was his first ever season starting. He used to share the role. I mean, he came out in that Mill Creek game, absolutely balled out.
Yep.
And then you look at just what he did the entire season was incredible. So I think he has a big year ahead of him. He's got his decision already made. He's going to Wake Forest. He's happy with that.
Yep.
So I think next year we're really going to see them take that focused effort. They had a great year, beat Buford, lost a tough game to Carrollton, but who knows? They might even get another move in. I think this last year they did replace a lot on both sides of the ball. They're young defensively. But I think when they kind of evaluate what Hecklinski is able to do, just have another long offseason, just catching and throwing with all these receivers, I think they're going to once again be one of the most exciting offenses to watch.
Yep, and the last one on that list was Mikael Wood. I thought he had a great postseason run. He came up big in that semifinal game against Milton. I think he had 2 or 3 touchdowns, I believe, in that game. But I thought he stepped up big their whole playoff run. Now he's going to Eastern Michigan. We'll see how that kind of plays out for him. But, I mean, a guy that has an exceptional talent and really impressed all postseason and all season long. I mean, he's a great guy when he gets the ball in his hands.
Absolutely. So in the state championship, Mill Creek was just running the ball like crazy, Cam Robinson. But think about back to that Milton game, what Mikael Wood did in that first quarter alone. I mean, he basically was closing in on 200 yards 5 minutes into the game. So anytime Mill Creek, they were outstanding running the ball this year, but anytime they needed that big play in the passing game, Mikael Wood did it. Did it in the Corky Kell, did it against Milton, did it when Throgmorton had to come in. Once Hayden Clark went down in that Milton game, catches a touchdown. So he had a great season. And then another guy for Mill Creek that I do want to shout out is their kicker, Jacob Ulrich. He was outstanding. He had a 57-yarder in the Corky Kell. He's also punting the ball, and then he ends up getting a scholarship to Kennesaw State. So that was huge for him. I just think he's a valuable player that in the state championship, they had all those kickoffs because they put up, 70 points. But he was 13 for 13 on kicking it into the end zone. That's invaluable, especially with dangerous return guys like Bryce Hicks. So I think that was a big season for him. And we just got to talk about Carrollton next year, though. Do you think just with Bryce Hicks, Juju, Caleb Odom, you got to think that they're going to be kind of eyeing that state title run once again?
Yeah, I definitely think they'll be in contention. You just got the weapons on offense in order to be. My biggest thing, though, is their defense. Because even against Mill Creek, they couldn't stop the bleeding. Put up 70 on them. Usually, if you score in a high school game, if you can score 25 points, you're feeling good. They scored 35 and still lost by 35.
Yeah.
So right. I mean, obviously, you play Mill Creek, they're a buzzsaw. We know Caleb Downs, that great offense, Cam Robinson, Mikael Wood, Brendan Jenkins. But will they be in contention? Certainly. Now, my question to you is, can they win it all? I think winning it all is they're going to need an improvement from the defense because even against Walton, even though they won the game, they were able to get stops. Bryce Hicks gets the interception before half. They beat them 52-27. So they're going to need those stops defensively throughout the season or, throughout the run in order, I think, to host a title. Can they do it? Certainly, but I think it'll depend on the defense.
Yeah, Mill Creek had such a balanced offense. You also factor in that Caleb Downs can come in, take all those carries.
Yep.
But you said it. They scored 35 points and were down 21 at the half.
Yeah.
56-35.
That's unheard of.
It really is.
Yeah.
But I just thought Mill Creek was just able to pick and choose what they wanted to do. And then once the run game got going, I mean, they had no chance of stopping it. But you look at the tape, you evaluate, you have the weapons offensively to keep the ball in your hands. And I just think Mill Creek, a unique type of monster this offensively. Just all the weapons they had, they were just extremely dangerous. And what they did in the state championship, I think, showed it to the state. I mean, that was, you look at them and Hughes, 2 unstoppable offenses.
And speaking of Hughes, 6A, who were some guys that stood out to you, obviously, on that all-state list? For me, it's Aaron Nolan. I can't wait to see, next year, these 2 young guys, Antoine Hill, quarterback for Houston County. They obviously lost to Gainesville in the playoffs. But him and Ryan Talib, who I thought had some incredible seasons this year, they both, I think, made the all-state list or the honorable mention list at least. What kind of season can they have? Obviously, next year, Hill will be a junior, be a senior. What kind of success can they have together? I think that's going to be a really question for next year. Those are some guys that stood out to me on the list. Your guy, Jeremiah Telander, I think is going to Tennessee. He made the list as well. Obviously Ben Gunther, I thought he had a great season as well out there in Alpharetta. They did come up short to Rome, but, I mean, he played excellent. So that's another guy keeping an eye on. I thought kind of an underrated player is Bryce Pollock from Shiloh. 6'1", very good defender, really good with his hands. Plays the ball well, has some great feet. It's another guy that stood out to me. And obviously, Douglas County, a couple players made this list. Hilton Alexander, who's going to Wake Forest. Zachariah Keefe, I think he's going to West Virginia. Those are some guys I thought this year were big for them. It's unfortunate they lost in the first round. I can't think of the team. I'm losing the team who they lost to.
It was Alatoona.
Alatoona, but I thought they had a great season. They had some really good players. Unfortunate injuries and things like that couldn't collectively get together. But I like what they're looking next year too.
Yeah, Antoine Hill had a great season. Houston County's in that region with Lee County, Northside Warner Robins. So it really doesn't matter how tough their non-region schedule is. We know it will be. They have a tough region next year. That's going to prepare them for the playoffs. But what I like about Prentice Air Nolan, you have all these games this year where they're pretty much blowing everyone out. They don't have a competitive game, but I still feel like he's a type of guy that rises to the occasion. I mean, the way he closes out halves, like steps up in these key drives, he doesn't miss. Anytime a receiver's open, you see him take advantage. There's some quarterbacks where it's like, oh, he should have gone there. No, Prentice is so dialed in. I think he's going to have another incredible year, and just having the state title run, going undefeated, I think we're going to see him once again continue to elevate. And at this point, once again, it's Hugh's classification to lose. I mean, no one came close to them this year. Gainesville put up a fight. You mentioned Tellender. I thought he was the best open field tackler I saw this year. And then just back to Douglas County and Hilton. I mean, he is a really athletic playmaker. Those interceptions he was having, Prentice only had, I think, 4 or 5 all season. And, of course, Deuce Hilton was one of them. And that was a great play. I remember it, just showing that ability to kind of jump up, steal what would have been a good gain. And I think he's going to have a great career. He's going to Wake Forest, right?
Yep, Wake Forest.
See, man, so, and Hecklinski.
That'll be interesting in a couple of years, man. They got some really good talent over there that's brewing, and kids that want to go there. Some really good kids. So don't sleep on them. But going to 5A, I mean, next year gonna be interesting. Cambridge won the region, but I got my eyes on Kale. I mean, Kale,
I'm glad you said it.
Bryce Cliven, that'll be intriguing, obviously. Peyton Zachary, a guy I told you. I mean, if we just look at what he did, Corky Kell, I mean, I knew then watching him, I was on the sideline that game. I just remember he just goes up and he's only like 5'8", 5'9", maybe. He goes up, skies over the catch with a guy, maybe like 6'2". And I was like, yo, who is that kid? And he was just making play after play after play. And I was just like, yeah, this kid's different. And then you were seeing it when we were in Rome for the Georgia League Classic when he was there. And he was like, yo, Najee, that kid's making another play. I was like, yeah, I'm not surprised. I've seen this earlier this year. And, that's when I knew, like, the kid was good. But you bring him in the mix, another year with Bryce Cliven, their head coach gets another year under his belt. That team could be dangerous. They're good in the trenches. The biggest thing will just be discipline, I think, for that group, making sure that if they have the early success like they had this year, sustaining it and, buying into the culture that, their head coach is starting to build. But, I mean, you got to like where the direction Cal's going.
100%. 5A, we saw it this year. There are some really talented teams in there. Your Ware counties, Kell, obviously, but Peyton Zachary. What is so exciting about watching him? It's like he comes in as a freshman. He also plays point guard. He's not a big guy, but my God, he gets so open. He doesn't drop anything, and he really was one of the most dominant receivers game in and game out. And we saw what he did at Georgia Elite too, just completely torched everyone. So in terms of just a baller, a route runner, a guy that just gets open, makes plays, I mean, it is really impressive the type of freshman year he had. And I think he is going to continue to get looks and offers. And,
already did.
Yeah.
Before our game, he had got a Louisville offer. So I think it's just starting for him. And I wouldn't be surprised before the end of next year, he has more major D1 offers.
100%. Yeah. And any young freshman or eighth grader that wants to kind of look at how to up their game, look at his highlight tapes, the way he runs routes, the just confidence, field awareness he has. I mean, he is really special. So I was excited to see him once again just come into the All-Star game and really have one of the better performances.
For sure. And then Jarvis Haynes also made the All-State list. That's another name that stood out to me. He had a great championship run. I like what he did in that championship game. I think he had over 100+ yards, 6+ catches, and a couple touchdowns. He was magnificent. So Kobe White, who was also at the Elite Classic, already committed to Georgia. Them and Cass. I mean, I think Devin Henderson is his name. I think he was their quarterback when he started Corky Kell, but I don't think he is anymore. So be curious to see how that kind of culminates together. They can make a run next year. I think they're going to play Rome in our Corky Kell Classic edition this year. So that'll be interesting. Obviously, Joshua Barker, who we just mentioned with Kell, all-time leader in sacks and TFLs for their team and team school history. Another guy, not the biggest 5'10", but I mean, just nimble with his feet, and he's creating pressure in the Georgia League Classic game. I think is another guy that you gotta keep your eyes on. I mean, Scott is just different breed. And then obviously Daquan White, defensive back. I was shocked they had lost to Warner Robins. That game went to overtime. They lost, I think, 31-28, but I thought that was a team that was going to be there at the end in 5A contending for a title. But that was not the case. They lost to them, who ended up going against Ware County. And another guy was Malachi Jeffries for Cartersville, the senior. Honorable mention. I thought he had a great season as well for them. Kind of gave them a nice balance attack with Paul Gamble there at the quarterback position. I thought he gave them some good balance. They have some good weapons. And look out next year. I think his name is Ethan Barber. Look out next year for Cartersville. That name. So your name to keep an eye on.
That'll be a great region. Cartersville, Calhoun, Hiram, and Cass. It was this past year. We got to factor in Creekside. They're going to be back next year. They're always competitive. But I think one of the big offseason moves is Marquise Westbrook leaving Warner Robins, going to Peach County. I mean, that'd be a big kind of change. Warner Robins has been that staple. And then just to see what Ware County is going to do next year after finally getting that first state title. So I think 5A was really impressive this year. Ware County just had that special run, but you factor in Kell, Bryce Clavin, Peyton Zachary next year, it's going to be really fun to watch again.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think you'll start seeing Clavin's offers start to kind of arise as well. What teams be interested in? But 4A.
Yeah, and Mays next year, I think.
Yeah. Mays is a good one. They showed us too, also in the Great London Bash, what they could do. And yeah, you're right. They actually did make a good little playoff run, and they didn't start the season the best, but I thought they played a pretty tough non-region schedule, and that just prepared them.
Yeah, and that was a first-year head coach for Coach Slate, and so I think Mays, they'll be a top 10 team for sure. I thought they had a great push down the stretch.
I agree. And then 4A, really quick, I think Teo Todd, a guy that Craig's been high on for some time now, a guy that had a great season. Harlem Diamond made our top 10 list. I just think what he did there in Cedartown with a pretty run-dominant team and how well he played. He came up short against Benedictine, but, I mean, they were right there at the end, just couldn't punch it in. But I think, he had a marvelous season as a senior. We'll see kind of what happens with him. Eli Barrows, another guy that made our top 10. Just a tackling machine, 186 total tackles. Guy that was just a difference maker. And then Khalil Barnes, who signed and is going to Clemson, is another guy that played really well for North Oconee. That stood out. And then a guy we mentioned, me and you, that we seen at the League Classic was Vakari Swain. Man, I mean, just dynamic with the ball in his hands, a real difference maker, plays both sides of the ball. He'll probably be defensive back at South Carolina, but just impressive.
Yeah, he was outstanding. What was so interesting about 4A this last year, you look at these other classifications, the 7As, the 3As, you usually have athletic quarterback, great DBs. It was a true slugfest this year. You have Benedictine coming in that last game, getting the win over Cedartown. They're just pounding at each other, running the ball. You have teams like Whitewater. They run the wishbone, triple option, Holy Innocents. There was just so much of that this season, just hard-running football teams. It's going to be interesting to see what it looks like next year. I don't think we're going to see that same trend. I think we'll see it more open, just with Cedartown kind of graduating. Harlem Diamond, North Oconee losing Khalil Barnes. I think we are going to see a more pass-oriented 4A next season, but this year it really was distinct out of all the classifications. When you looked at that semifinals, that was, as I say, just smash-mouth football teams, and really the only classification where you saw, besides maybe with Bowden, but teams that just are hard, physical running teams making the run, they dominated that classification this season.
They did, and 4A was super good. I think it was one of the best state title games. I mean,
for sure,
it was definitely defensive, but it was old school, run heavy. Came down to the end, needed defensive stop. It was just the clash almost of the Titans. I thought, in my opinion, just teams going back and forth, but just very physical, kind of old-fashioned game. I loved it.
Yep.
It was
And
one of
Wayne
my
County
favorites.
too, another team that just runs the ball like crazy. So
Yeah.
and they'll be back again. So J-Buck Shaw, his first year at Wayne County, they came into 4A. They were a 1-9 team and then made a run to the quarterfinals last year. So he had a great turnaround for them. I'm excited what it's going to look like next year, but I think it's going to be teams like Stockbridge, Wayne County, Perry will be good again, and then you can't count out Benedictine, but
Right.
it really was just a great year for running the ball in 4A.
Yeah, it was. And I'll kind of do rapid fire here so we get to like big offseason moves. And I'll let Craig go right after me. 3A, some more standouts. Kamir Latimer, he won Offensive Player of the Year, rightfully so. Sandy Creek, they won a state title this year. I'm not going to mention the call. Everybody knows about it at this point. But again, phenomenal year for him. Nonetheless, he really impressed. Aquinas Clements for Carver Atlanta. Really good. I think he had 44 TFLs this season. Really impressed me. Adonijah Green, who's going to Louisville, 6'6", 225. Is a guy that just had a great season for Cedar Grove. They pitched 2 shutouts this season in the playoffs. One, I think it was against Calvary Day. I forget the other team, but great season for them. Julian Fox from Chris County also had another great season. Caleb Cost, who's going to North Carolina, was also another great DB this past season. Aiden Butts, who I thought for Stevens County, junior. Glad he's going to be coming back next year. He led the state in sacks at one point. Didn't leave with that crown, but I think a guy that was really impressive with kind of his get off was and how he played. And then, Zeke Mender for Carver Atlanta, I thought had a great year. And then Jack Merklinger, I think, is a 4-star for Calvary Day, gets another year under the helm. So I think, he'll have an even better season next year. And then 2A, Jontavius Curry, Kewan Brown, and Nick Woodford, the sophomore, they all stood out to me. Tay Seymour also for South Atlanta, the senior, I thought had a good season. And then Storm Hunt for Thompson led the whole state actually in interceptions with 8. And then Division I, Class A, Aaron Philo, Bailey Stockton, Ethan Christian, Keegan Stover, Cam Vaughn, Ethan Oglesby, Caleb Bell. Those are awesome names that stood out to me this season. All had phenomenal years, especially Prince Avenue Christian. Being able to see Ethan Christian in action and go off for 150-plus yards, I mean, he just shows he's different, really good. But, yeah, he really impressed me. And then last but not least, Class A Division II, TJ Harvison, what he did for Bowden in the state title game, just incredible. Robert McNeil for Bowden, also the athlete/quarterback. He had a good season. He really impressed me. Devontae James out of Terrell County, defensive back, had a really phenomenal season. Another guy that impressed. And then Jameer Glenn from Lanier County.
Bowden's going to have to replace that offensive line. Truly dominant performance. You also mentioned McNeil. But you got to think that their position in that Class A Division II, they're one of the larger schools there. They don't have to play with the bigger private schools, the urban counties. They're going to have another chance next year. Thought Schley County gave them a great football game. You mentioned Ethan Christian. He was a senior. He's going to be gone. But that kind of prototype receiver that Prince Avenue Christian's been creating, it's unbelievable just to see his speed down the field and the ability to catch that deep ball. I mean, he was burning people in Georgia Elite. He did it all year long. Aaron Philo, just an outstanding quarterback. He'll be back. And then in 3A, I think Oconee County was a great team. They're definitely going to miss Whit Weeks when he moves on. He was a true game player on both sides of the football. And then you look at who Oconee County was able to edge in the playoffs this year, Carver Columbus. I think Carver has a chance. They're kind of looking at how 3A played out. They've had back-to-back disappointing playoff exits. I think it's they're looking to make noise next year for sure.
Yup, I definitely think so. And we'll leave it there for the All-State. Congrats to all the players that made it. Definitely had phenomenal seasons. But, we'll kind of do a look ahead at the end of what we're kind of excited to see. But I want to get to the major offseason moves and transfers. I mean, so much didn't happen right now. Chad Alligood, I believe he was the coach for LaGrange, if I'm not mistaken.
Where was he at? Good. Ooh.
It was LaGrange, right?
No, that was Matt Napier. Chad. Yeah, I can't remember.
I can't remember either, but the name stands out. He's going to Jones County, where he's at Jones County. He's their AD. Tim McFarland went to Georgia Tech. That's also some major news. Marquise Westbrook, as Craig mentioned, left. Warner Robbins, he's going to Peach County. He was a 2-time state won 2 state titles and then made 4 straight finals. So he had an incredible run there with Warner Robbins. The big one here to me, King Joseph Edwards transfers to Mill Creek from Buford. So last year they were in the same region. I don't know if that'll happen again this year. Craig can correct me if I'm wrong, but him leaving Buford to go to Mill Creek now, Throgmorton, how is he going to look now getting most of the reps? The sophomore last year is going to be a junior going into his upcoming season. He has weapons. He's going to have Cam Robinson, who I think is, you could argue he's going to probably be one of the top runners in 7A next year. And you pair that with King Joseph Edwards, who's an athlete you can kind of use on both sides of the ball. I mean, you got to think Josh Lovelady's going to have some fun with him. So I'm curious to see how they're going to look offensively next year. Bringing him in, I think is just going to bode well for their team and, what they're going to be able to do. And I can't wait to see how he's going to look. I think he's a senior next year. How he's going to look in the senior season, how much they try to utilize him. I think that's a big move. And then Lenny Gregory, actually almost a month ago now, resigns as Collin Hill head coach.
They had a really tough season.
They did, and his thing, he said they didn't really see eye to eye. I just think that's hard, man. I mean, the year before you win the whole thing, you're 15-0. You darn near won the Geico Invitational against an elite team. I think it's just hard to kind of, move on from him after all he built there with the team. Before they won the state title, they were knocking on the door. I think they had like a quarterfinal and semifinal loss. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Adam Carter, as you mentioned, our other shows that Who Broke the News, Luke Winstel, that he's going to Lowndes. So it'll be interesting how Lowndes is going to look this year. How will Grayson look? Grayson's going to be in Narcotic this year. They're going to play Walton. Whoever's calling that game, I think that's going to be one of the best games all weekend long. I know it starts Wednesday and goes to Saturday, but, I think that's in the primetime slot for a reason. And I think it's going to be an incredible game. I'm curious to see who's going to be their head coach. How is their team going to look? They're going to keep most of their pieces. Tyler Atkinson is a stud. Going to be going in his sophomore year. He already has over, I think, 30, 40 offers. How will Grayson look going into the new season? That's kind of my look ahead.
And who is the coach going to be? That's a huge question mark. I think the other one is just what's Mill Creek going to look like? I mean, that was a special senior class, but I thought Cam Robinson, the way he stepped up running the ball, he's outstanding. I mean, he's a downhill runner. He's so good laterally. He has patience. He's hard to tackle. He's going to make plays next year. And then it's just going to – but what Mill Creek does so well is they don't necessarily – let me put it this way. They maximize their roster. It's like if they have a defensive back that, man, they need him in that secondary, they find ways to give him limited touches offensively. So as long as they keep doing that, I mean, they have the game plan. They have versatile guys all over the place. So just expect them to keep doing that better than any other team in 7A. Take those playmakers on defense, put them in on special teams. We saw that too. They're outstanding in all three phases. But I just think what they do better than anyone else is maximizing their roster, taking playmakers on both sides of the ball and just put them in key situations that they know that they can take advantage of. And that's what they did the last few years and certainly this season.
Yeah, they did. And my quick look ahead to next year, obviously those are the major news if you guys don't know.
Alligator was at Northside Warner Robins.
Thank you. Yeah. Northside Warner Robins, Alligator was, and then he moves to, was it Banks County?
Jones County.
Jones County, thank you. Sorry, Jones County. But, yeah, my major look ahead is next season, 7A. How will it look? I think Craig demonstrated and said it perfectly, 7A Renaissance. And I was able to convince him. I know he looked at me kind of like I was crazy. He is a Walton alum. When I predicted kind of them going in and upsetting Buford, you guys know I'm kind of big on the upsets. I like to call them. When I have that gut feeling, it doesn't always come true, but I say about 80% of the time it does. So I had it going in. I was like, I just got a funny feeling they're going to win. And looked at me crazy, but then he was like, okay, let me break this down. He analyzed it. So really the big thing out of that is how is Walton going to look another year with Jeremy Hilitsky at the helm? He's going to be a senior. He's already committed. It's crazy kind of his journey where he went 0-star. Nobody's talking about him. Now he's a 3-star. He's going to Wake Forest. I think his story is incredible. It's great. And I know Daniel Brunner was to win a state title with them. So I think how they come out in week 1, I'm going to keep saying it, is going to be huge. If they're going to make that run, they went to semifinals the year prior, and then this past year they went to quarterfinals. If they're going to make that state run, it's going to start week 1, getting that victory. And like he said, winning the opener, winning the region, and winning the closer. I remember that standing out for me in the interviews with him. Those are the 3 goals that they set. So it'll be interesting to see. They didn't hit any of those 3 this year. Interesting to see how they come out. If they're able to hit and be physical with Grayson, as we know, that's a very physical team. So, week 1, how will they look? How will Mill Creek look without Hayden Clark being there, without their, you can almost say, an all-time great player, Caleb Downs not being there. Losing Jamal Anderson, another year with Trajan Jerko is going to be there. So how will they look? Carrollton, as you mentioned, Craig, is 7-8. How are they going to look kind of coming out? We know they got all the talent offensively. We know they can score with teams. We know they can probably win shootouts for the most part. Their defense be making enough stops. That's the biggest thing. Can their defense make enough stops? That's my biggest question for Carrollton. I already believe in the offense. I think they're going to be good next year again. But 7-8, that's what I'm looking for. And 6-8, who is going to contend? Who is going to challenge Langston Hughes? Because as we said, we think this is their title to lose. What team is going to be in there that can step up, make a difference, and contend with them potentially for a title? Or, as we've seen with Buford, who won 3 straight titles, knock them out. Begs the question.
Yeah. In order to beat Hughes, it's like you have teams like Lee County. They're outstanding. They got just huge rosters, all these playmakers. But you have to come in with an attitude, set the tone, and really, if you're watching the game, we saw it with Walton and Buford. It's like they took over the game. It's like it wasn't like they waited to see what happened. They came out with that attitude and really shocked the opponent. It's like, oh, wow, they're going for it on 4th and 8, just drawing up all these big plays and just coming out and hitting them. You're going to have to do that to get Hughes off their game, and I just don't think it's going to happen. I think the way the offense runs, the size they have up front on both sides, the depth, they're definitely my favorite to win once again. But I think you said it exactly right with Walton. How did they come out? 7A is going to be tough.
Yeah.
Hecklinski has 1 year left.
Yep.
So that's probably sinking in for him right now. He's already had a big junior season, a lot of fun, the huge upset. But it's like, this is it. Coach Bruner has been saying he wants a state championship there. So what is it going to take? It's going to take that level of preparation where Walton comes out and just completely outclasses the opponent, out-prepares them, catches them off guard, similar to what we saw Mill Creek do in that state championship, just really dominate in every phase and not let up. I think if they find things defensively, they have good schemes. It's all about forcing the opponent into the third downs and getting off the field. It's that simple. So if they can do that and not just give up these big running plays, big passing plays, they can keep themselves in the game. I think Hecklinski has not only the arm skill set, but he's a guy that he understands how much time's left on the clock. He's really tuned into the game. He takes advantage, and I think any scenario he's comfortable in.
Yeah, I certainly agree. And how will Lowndes look under year 1 under Adam Carter in South Georgia? We don't talk about South Georgia a lot, but how is that going to look? They got a rivalry down there with Cocoa County. Cocoa had a great start to the season. No, I'm thinking Valdosta. Sorry. All 3 of those teams have, played each other a lot. But how will Valdosta look this year? They were 8-0, and they kind of filmed it off a little bit. They got another year with Eric Brantley there. How are they going to look this year? Colquitt, again, they made it deep, lost to Carrollton at home. How are they going to look in another year or this year coming up? Some interesting questions, some storylines. 6A, we mentioned. 5A, I think, is going to be probably one of the better conferences. Despite 7A, I think, took that home this year with everything that happened in the upsets and the major wins. And I think 5A is going to be sneaky good next year. I think with Ware County, Creekside, Cale, how is that all going to look? How is Cambridge going to look losing their senior class? I think Craig Bennett's done an outstanding job with that team and that program. But, I think it was the 4 straight second-round exits. Yep. Can they finally get over the hump? I think is my biggest question. They've had some tough teams. They've played Bufords. They've played the Cartersvilles. They've played tough tems in that second round spot. But can he finally get them over, or will it be kind of a rebuilding year for them after they lost all their senior talent? No more Will Taylor, no more Christian Isabor, but they will have Preston Clemmer, and they leaned a lot on that offensive line, which was really stout and really good last year. So how will they look going into this season?
They're tough. They're outstanding tackling, all that.
Yep.
But 5A. We can keep going it. Dutchtown,
yep.
Mays, Jones County, Calhoun. It's such a wide open classification.
Yeah.
But then back to Valdosta, they have to find an offense.
Yeah.
Their defense was great this year. They kept themselves in it. They could not put points on the board. I'm pretty sure they only averaged like 15 points per game, maybe, especially once the region got there. And so that was a big complaint from them and their fans all season. It's like, man, we got a great team. We're really talented, but that offense just did not show up. They never got anything going. So that's going to be the key for them. And I just think one of the most interesting hires will be Adam Carter. He's a very serious coach. He's going to come in focused. Lowndes did beat Grayson this season, so it's interesting that he's going down there now. But I think he's just going to come in with that game plan, and it will be exciting just to have kind of a new leadership role there. They had Coach McPherson for so long before Coach Grage got there for just 1 year. They had a disappointing kind of season. I know they'll have a chip on their shoulder, and then you bring in a focused Coach Carter who has gotten it done before, won state titles. I think that'll be really exciting.
Yeah, for sure. So those are kind of our storylines. We didn't mention, 3A, 4A, 2A, which we will probably next show. But those are our storylines as we kind of, we're transitioning into off season a little bit and 7-on-7s. But we'll mention some more storylines. But that's what stands out to us in the major ones, 6A, 5As, and 7As. But we'll leave it there for high school football. But a lot to look forward to next year. But now we got to talk about some college football, man. The playoff. I guess we could start with the national championship game. Perfect, 65-7. That was a butt kicking, an obliteration. Most fans, I think, left halftime.
Yeah, it was really amazing to see just the pure domination, especially, and it just put everything in such clear perspective because we all watched the Peach Bowl. What a game that was. Ohio State was fantastic. They eke out this victory, and then
that was a national title game to me.
Exactly. And then I thought heading into TCU, it's like, okay, Georgia should win this. They'll probably be up 21. Maybe TCU will cut into it late. I didn't really think it was going to be a competitive game, but I don't think anyone expected it to be that bad. They absolutely whooped them. Most points scored in a bowl game ever. Biggest bowl game blowout. And just what that shows to your average college football fan about like how just the mismatch. It was unbelievable. They just absolutely beat up on them. Everyone felt sorry for TCU. But yeah, I think it just shows that Ohio State game was the real deal, one of the better games of the season. And it's just too bad that last night was just that bad of a blowout.
I think it just shows the disparity in college football. It shows the classes, and it shows that there's levels to this. Yep. And I know people get tired of seeing SEC teams, and they get tired of seeing the Georgias and the Bamas and the Tennessees or the LSUs, but they're just different, bro. They're just different, and they put that on the line. And there's only a few conferences that have been able to contend and to compete against them. And there's been a couple teams in the ACC that have done it in the new era in this past decade, the 2010s, the 2020s. It's been the Big 12, not the Big 12, excuse me. It's been the Big 10. Ohio State is a team that's been able to compete against them as well. They have been coming up short, but to actually go blow for blow, I thought Ohio State did that. So it's unfortunate, but shout out to Georgia. The stat line's crazy. They had nearly 600 yards total offense. First downs, 32-9. 6 touchdowns for Stetson Bennett. 300-plus yards passing. 4 touchdowns total. 6 touchdowns total. 7 catches, 152 yards, and touchdown for Brock Bowers. 5 catches, 88 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Ladd McConkey. This wasn't even including A.D. Mitchell, who went off in the Peach Bowl. Wasn't including, Darnell Watson on a couple catches in this game playing hurt. That was just an obliteration. That's just what it was. And shout out to Georgia. I knew they were going to win. I had them winning by double digits, but I didn't think they were going to whoop them like that. So that's what it showed me. There's levels to this. And respectfully, Georgia's up there. But to say, when the question has been asked a lot today, been seen on channels, is, are they on Alabama's level? Are they where Alabama is? Or have they surpassed Alabama? And I'm gonna pump the brakes on that one a little bit first, because I'm gonna say not yet. They have won back-to-back, I think Bama won like 6 titles in 9 years or something. So they haven't done it the last 2 years. But I think you can say maybe potentially if they surpass, they need a little more longevity. Can they get a three-peat next year? I don't think they will. I think they're a great team, but it's hard to do that. You start having egos. You start having players that are getting complacent. You have players not trying as hard. Like, it's a lot that goes into that. You have to be ultra focused, and like you have to buy into everything your coach is saying. So they're going to do a lot next year. But I think Georgia's a great team. But instead of Bennett, you can make the argument he's probably one of the best players that came out of Georgia. I mean, and that actually ties into what I went tied into. You see a lot of especially with the transfer portal, Craig, and you can attest to this. You see a lot of people leave after 1 year of not getting a start, or 2 years of not getting a start, maybe even one season. And at the end of the day, if you're a player, you got to do what's best for you. But I think Stetson Bennett is the testament of patience, sticking it out, hard work, sheer drive, work ethic. And I think his story should help inspire and even motivate a lot of players, especially when we see on the college level, which we just finished with like maybe a Ben Guthrie. So potentially he may not, I think he should be a Power 5 player, but let's say he's not. Go to a school, walk on, show them your talent. Because what Stetson Bennett showed me was he would not be denied. And now he's a 2-time champion. He's a Heisman finalist, he was first team all SEC. He's won a bunch of different accolades, and he wasn't even their starter. So it just goes to show you he went from walk on to JUCO, and then now he played for Georgia. So it just goes to show you, put your head down, work at it. Don't make no excuses for yourself. Again, do what's best for you, but you can have success. It just might not be where you want it. And I think that has to be talked about today, Craig, because we live in an era now where everybody wants it now. And if I don't get it now, then I just quit. Or if I don't get it now, I'm going to just go somewhere else. Sometimes the value in it and kind of the reward is sticking it out and going through it and actually putting all that work in and seeing it manifest into something incredible and being able to reap the benefits of all that work you put in. Sometimes it's okay to stay, And I think we just seen the fruits of his labor and what happened. So that's my kind of thing for players, that people that watch this, just it's okay to stick it out, man. Sometimes you build that rapport with your coach, and eventually if they keep seeing you, you get rewarded. So don't be so tied into having the results right then and there. You might not be successful the first year. That's okay. But be able to be coachable, be able to take criticism, and just try to get better. And you'll see the results. You might not see it the next year. You might see it the following year. Bennett didn't see it until what? I think his senior year. But you will see it.
Yeah, well said. And you look at him, think about just how much work went into that, just that not being denied, all the preparation he did, and what the result is. It's like he's created Stetson Bennett. He does have a unique skill set. He is able to extend plays on the ground. It's like he might not have some of these other attributes you would expect from a guy that's going to come in as a 5-star and start for you, but he just kept developing himself, and then he became that guy. So it really is a phenomenal story. But I think the biggest argument, I'm going to take it back to, is Georgia the next Alabama? You mentioned the longevity, but something that might show they're on track for that is the fact that after last year, they sent that many players to the draft. They set the record. They replaced so many guys, and now they're back in it. Did they play one of the toughest schedules ever? No. I thought Ohio State was obviously their toughest game. They did have a pretty easy schedule this season. I mean, even LSU in the SEC championship, not the toughest season-long schedule. But the fact that they replaced all those guys and then came back, that's huge. But, yeah, what are they going to do next season?
Yep.
That's the interesting thing. And then here's a question. Do you think the Georgia fan base is as big as Alabama?
You know what? It's certainly trending that way. It's starting to trend that way. I mean, you should see how packed their games are.
Though.
I mean, who's to make the argument they're not equally as big? I mean, I think that's a great argument. We've seen what they've done the last couple of years in Athens, winning it back to back and finally being able to kind of overcome that hump with Alabama last year. So yeah, I mean, I can't definitively say that they're not. I definitely think it's grown on that.
Because they used to do these polls where it's like, who's your favorite team in the city of Atlanta? And it really wasn't that Georgia dominated, but I feel like after them winning the back-to-back, they are starting to become like Atlanta's team, Georgia's team. So I think once we see them hit that level of just like widespread fan base, if they get on that Alabama level, then we'll really just see the support, see the constant buzz. We'll see Atlanta media covering Georgia like it's their hometown team. I think that's what we're starting to see. I don't think they're at Alabama's level next, but I mean, what they did with replacing all those guys and just the growing support and fan base, they're definitely on track for that. And I mean, it was it's hard to even put in perspective what that win last night like shows. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. That was the biggest blowout. I've seen Georgia play Hawaii back in the day in the Sugar Bowl. They beat the crud out of them. But that was even worse. Yeah, but I mean, that was even worse. So it's like, what do you even take away from that game? It's like
SEC domination. That's all you can really say. It's just
in
another
the national
level.
Championship game. It's just.
I mean, you don't see that every day. I mean, it was all dropping. One more point about Bennett I wanted to make too was I feel like too a lot of talent evaluators and scouts going to the next level, they look for the tangibles, the speed, the athleticism, the big arm, the arm strength. Sometimes, Craig, it is okay to have a winner, and that's kind of what Bennett is. No one can ever take that away from him. He's a winner. Like even if you look, oh well, you don't have the best athleticism. Well, I showed I can run. I scored 2 rushing touchdowns in the state title game. I had 205 yards and 10 rushing touchdowns this year, so I can obviously show that. But they get so lost, I think, sometimes into the tangible things. They don't look at the intangibles, and I think he checks every box with the intangibles for Bennett. And not saying he's not a Joe Burrow, but in some aspects, he reminds you of him because when he came out, they weren't enamored. Even in the NFL, like they like now they try to find ways to say, oh well, he's not Patrick Mahomes or he's not a Josh Allen, but the kid's just a winner. You know, he's very accurate with the football. He can extend plays. Same thing Bennett can do, but he just doesn't wow you with the no looks like Mahomes could do, or the physicality with running the football, or his arm strength. But sometimes that's okay. If you're a winner and you know what to do with the football, you know how to buy time, you know how to extend plays. Sometimes the miraculous plays aren't always the best thing. Sometimes it's just, I need you to go in there. I need you to win this big game for me. I need you to shine in the biggest moments. Not saying that Mahomes or Allen cannot do that. They certainly can. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying sometimes look at the intangibles and what else the player can bring to your team. The leadership. I think that's a big thing. He's won over Georgia. I mean, you go look at when he started and kind of their big question mark around what Georgia was going to be, who their quarterback was going to be. He took over that team, and now he's a 2-time champion and he's their unquestionable leader. Those are some big things. I think that gets lost a lot.
100%. I think that's what's so interesting about it. It's like he was in this position. He was probably aware with it. He has one bad game. They have a bad loss. He doesn't come out and play well.
Right.
I mean, he might be gone. They might say, hey, that's it.
Yep.
Finally, this is what we've all been saying. So he had that kind of hanging over him the entire time. But then you just look at the way he handled adversity in the Ohio State game. It's like he'll see them score a touchdown. He kind of just sighs like, okay, let's go out there, guys. So he really has like that unique pressure around him. And it's just, what do you think he was thinking being in that position where it's like he's not the 5-star guy? He knows that people are going to say, okay, this guy's a walk-on, this guy's this, like, can he even play at the NFL level? All these other quarterbacks are getting all this praise. Yeah, he gets invited to the Heisman this year, but it's like that surrounding kind of reality of him. I think that's what was so interesting about him, and he was just able to rise above it every single game.
Yep.
It's just really impressive, and I completely agree. It is an inspiring example.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I hope NFL evaluators look at that and they actually evaluate not just the talent, but the intangibles and everything that comes with it, because that is very, very important. You don't want an enigma coming into your franchise. You don't want somebody thinking he's a hot shot And not saying those are bad. It's bad to have confidence. It's nothing wrong with that. But confidence and arrogance are two different things. Those run a very thin line. And obviously you want a confident QB, but you also want somebody that's a leader, somebody that can take you to the throne. So I think going into this draft, they should think about it. This is a very deep quarterback draft that we're going to talk about later. But definitely think about that.
I think, yeah, exactly. So one more thing.
Yep.
It wasn't like you have Stetson and, okay, he's limited in what he can do. Let's build the offense around him. Stetson had this attitude where it's like, here's what I can do. And then he was showing it to the staff. And then they're like, oh, we can bring this guy in. So I think he has that attitude. And that's why I said he created Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
He created that skill set just by grinding, preparing, and just refusing not to give himself a chance to earn that job. I mean, it's really outstanding. Just the way Georgia's waited so long, and then for him to be the guy, the quarterback, to get it done, it's definitely memorable. And I think he does go down just as a true legend.
Yep, he does. And last thing on that, and we're going to transition to looking ahead to next season for college football. I wanted to talk about CJ Stroud. It's not on our list, but his name came to my mind. What he did against that Georgia defense cannot be understated. Please, they clamped down on practically everybody this year. Hayden Hooker, who was, was he a Heisman finalist?
Yes.
Yeah, Hayden Hooker couldn't do nothing. Stroud lit them up for over 400 yards, and they nearly had a chance to win. His top receiver goes down, and his other top receiver doesn't even play. So let's not take out of the question of what he did. He was incredible in that Peach Bowl game against them. He gave them their full shot. They were leading. Unfortunate injury to Marvin Harrison Jr. But what he did with his legs, so the Ohio State fans were complaining about, that's a guy. And the reason why I took Ohio State in the game, I should have did a video, but I didn't. But he was the reason. I think sometimes that gets lost. If you got the guy at quarterback, you can contend for a championship. And I thought Stroud the whole time was that guy that just came up short this season. A lot of injuries that went out in that game, but just a guy that really impressed me with his play against Georgia was Stroud. He should be, at worst, the second quarterback taken in the draft. He's better than Will Levis. Bryce Young is better than Will Levis. Whatever I want to say, I'm not talking about numbers. Look at it. Look how they played. Will Levis played for the SEC at Kentucky. I mean, they make it so complicated. It's not that complicated. You go put – did Georgia play Kentucky this year?
I thought so.
I think Georgia played Kentucky. Go look at the tape of what Stroud did versus Georgia, and go look at the tape that Will Levis did against Georgia. And if you still think
16-6.
Right, 16-6. Go look at both of those tapes. And if you can look at those tapes and tell me definitively that Will Levis is better, I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to leave it there. But again, CJ Stroud is that dude. I think Ohio State is one of those programs outside of the SEC and outside of the ACC with Clemson. I think coming up, Miami potentially is going to be really good, and potentially Florida State. That's going to be able to contend. And that's how it should be. The other schools, they just a couple steps behind.
Yeah, CJ Stroud in that Peach Bowl game. I mean, I had seen what he had done this year. That was by far the most impressive performance. The way he bought himself time, the throws he was making,
the runs.
It's just you couldn't stop him, and it was the willingness to lead his team. All these different throws, the difficulty. I mean, he just made everything look easy though, and just a big throw after big throw. I was impressed. I'm a fan for life after what I saw him do in that game, because I mean, that was really fun to watch, and gosh, he just balled out. I mean, he was so just like it was like he was turned up to just a different speed. The way he was just how quick he'd get rid of the ball, seeing just the entire field is just like, wow, what am I witnessing right now? So you made a great point of just what he was able to do against that Georgia defense. You cannot discount that.
You certainly can't. And looking ahead to next season, I thought it's to you, Craig. What are you most excited to see? I mean, we got so many storylines going into the next season. We got the proverbial shot essentially on live TV to Alabama, saying that, Georgia's kind of overtaking them as a program. Nick Saban's face after. I mean, he could even use that as motivation for his team next year. They had a top recruiting class this year. What will Miami look like in the second year under Mario Cristobal? I think it's a good question. Lincoln Riley out there in USC, they came up close. Pac-12 next year. I think I was talking to somebody and they said Pac-12 could be pretty good. I mean, Bo Nix is going to come back for Oregon. Colorado has Deion Sanders and that talent they're going to have over there. USC is going to obviously be in a running with Lincoln Riley. How will that Pac-12 conference look next year? But what's some things stood out to you?
I think LSU having that big breakout, that's going to be a big storyline. They make it to the SEC championship. First year head coach, an exciting year. Some disappointing losses, but obviously they beat Alabama. It was huge. As for Alabama, all their losses were close, but as I said, they didn't have one Alabama game this year where they came out and just dominated. That's what they're going to want to do early in the season. Make a statement, show that they can be that number one ranked team. Georgia, can they continue to keep this thing moving by replacing a bunch of people? I think they'll once again they'll enter the season number one. And then what you said, Tennessee, can they take that next step? The recruiting's been really interesting so far, but I think it does revolve around the Tennessees, LSU, Alabama, Georgia. I think the ACC looks interesting with Clemson. They had a pretty interesting year with some tough losses. They looked like crap in the bowl game.
Yep.
I was disappointed in that. They need to be better offensively. I think Michigan, they're going to stick to that same formula this year, but they still have areas to improve on. And then Pac-12, as you said, USC is going to be great this year. And then can they take advantage of that playoff? And what will we see with that? I think it will be an interesting season, but I think the thing I'm most looking at is just how does Bama come out and respond? They need to come out and get a big win.
Yeah, one more team I didn't mention was Texas. How will they look another year? They nearly had a breakout season last year. They almost upset it, which I nearly called. Everybody called me crazy when I called it, or nearly called it. I mean, they barely lost to Alabama 2019. Yep. How will his name is drawing me a blank right now. Who is their quarterback? It's not Archie. Forgive me, guys. I'm drawing a blank of who their quarterback was last year for Texas. Quinn Edwards. I'm sorry. I was drawing a blank for whatever reason. But Quinn Edwards, their first game, he looked good. He got hurt. You know, that was kind of the storyline of the season. He could come back some games, get hurt again. But they had a really good roster. I thought the defense played well in that game against Alabama. But how will they look in another year with Quinn Edwards at the helm? Obviously, I think that'll be really intriguing and interesting. How far can Texas go out there in that Big 12? They're going to be moving to the SEC in, I think, 2 years from now. So, I mean, got to get ready to go now. I mean, and the good thing is they're going to expose themselves, them in Oklahoma, to some really upper echelon talent. And I think them playing SEC schools now is important because that's what you're going to face. And if you want to come out, those are the teams you're going to have to beat. And how will the debacle of Texas A&M, I didn't even mention them. Yeah. That was number one recruiting class. You have so many players transferring out, transferring in. They did get some big recruits. They got DeBron Gatling, who's going there. So, I mean, from Milton, the receiver, just stud. I think he's a senior going into this year, right?
Yep.
Gatling. So I think that'll be interesting to see in a couple of years how that's going to look with him. But how would Jimbo Fisher turn around? That was a tumultuous season. If they have another season like that, I don't think he keeps his job.
And then what about TCU next season? I mean, that loss was so bad. I didn't want to bring it up, but that loss was so bad. Their Michigan win doesn't even seem like it happened anymore.
No.
It's like they completely wiped that away. So you would be coming off a pretty successful season. They did lose to Kansas State.
Yep.
But it's like, how do they come out next season? Because, I mean, that's tough. That's a tough thing to kind of put in the rearview mirror to refocus on.
I wouldn't even want to watch the film of that game. It's like flush it and let's try to refocus because, that was bad. You know, that was certainly bad. So we'll see what happens with them.
They're going to have to try to save face next year early.
Yeah, for sure. We'll leave our college topics there for today, and we're going to conclude today with the last segment, NFL season. Some things that stood out to me right at the end. A lot of storylines in the NFL. Certainly my favorite section. Dallas, again, is sputtering down the stretch. They got beat pretty good against the Commanders, the third-string quarterback, a rookie, Sam Howell from North Carolina, 26-6. Dak Prescott was 14 for 37 for 128 yards and touchdown and a pick, 37% completion percentage. Certainly not good. They had a division berth on the line, potentially even a number one seed, but they blew that. So I don't know, man. With Dallas, they just always, for me, it's just this time of the year, they kind of almost fold. They have all the talent in the world, great, defensive line, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, good linebackers, good corner in Trayvon Diggs, good weapons on the offense with CeeDee Lamb, and the great 1-2 punch with Tony Pollard and obviously Ezekiel Elliott. But I feel like it's every year. But we'll see. They play Monday night next week against Tampa Bay on the road, so that's going to kind of determine if they're going to have a nice playoff run. But I mean, seems like it's the same old Cowboys to me. But we'll see what happens with them. And then Lovie Smith sticks it to the Houston Texans before he's fired. Winning the game against Indianapolis, they lose the first one overall pick. So I'm sure they didn't love that, but he did it. And then the Bears actually are going to have them overall pick. So a lot of people are speculating, should they select the number one? Should they select the quarterback, Bryce Young, or I guess Will Levis, because he's number one in most projections. If they should select quarterback, I guess to replace Fields. Now, real quick before I throw it to Craig of what standout sent to him for the conclusion of the season, I'm going to say this. If you're the Bears, you don't draft a quarterback. Okay? Look, you got the quarterback. Okay? Everyone's like, oh, he only completed 8 passes in a game, or, he has some limitations with throwing the football. Look, man, you got the guy. It's hard to get the guy at the quarterback position, especially in the NFL. Okay? You got a division that's changing the guard now. We don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do, which we'll get to in a second. The Lions just beat them and swept them this year. Minnesota having a good year, but, we don't know what's going to happen with them next year. So if you're the Bears, do copy what Philly just did. Philly the year before got Devontae Smith. It's in the second year. And they went in free agency or traded for A.J. Brown. And they already had Dallas Goedert, who they drafted. So you got a good tight end already with Cole Kmet. Build around Justin Fields. How about let's do that? Let's trade the number 1 overall pick. If you're not going to get Will Anderson, who's a difference maker on defense, I think number 1 overall pick, go get some receivers. Go get some weapons. Obviously, you traded for Chase Claypool. He didn't have the best finish to the season when you got him. Go get some weapons. This is a good receiver class. You're going to have Njigba there. I think Quentin Johnson, who played for TCU, didn't have his best game. It's going to be a pretty good receiver class. Go get Justin Fields some weapons, and you'll start to see the fruits of the labor. That's been the Ravens' problem. Isaiah Likely is a good player they drafted this year. Mike Andrews is a good player, but name me his number 1 receiver. I mean, you say Marquise Brown, okay, but has he truly had a number 1? We see what happened with Josh Allen when he got a number 1, right? With Stephon Diggs. Career went up. It didn't plateau. Joe Burrow, his rookie season, he was okay. Wasn't, what he is now. What did they go and do? Got a lot of criticism, but they went and got number 1 receiver in Jamar Chase, number 5 overall. So I feel like if you're the Bears, try to trade back the number 1 overall pick, top 5 potentially, go get him another weapon. Second round, possibly go get him another weapon. This is what you have to do. You don't need a quarterback, okay? You have to build the team. And that's what Philly really just did. Philly already had some core pieces there, but there was a lot of question marks around Jalen Hurts. And nobody knew if he was the quarterback or if he could sustain or if they need to go get one. But that question has been significantly answered. And it's because they went and got weapons around him to see if it's him or was it the weapons. I think unequivocally, he didn't have enough weapons around him in order to be successful. Now he has the weapons. Now they have the number 1 seed, the 14-3, and could potentially contend for a Super Bowl. So if you're the Bears, you're the new GM, you're the coach, go get some weapons.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I think trying to start over at quarterback this year, potentially it could improve, but yeah, as you said, there are no weapons around him right now. No. So
you're gonna go put Bryce Young back in the same position he was in?
Exactly. Well said. I think what stands out though, just looking at these first round matchups of what we saw at the end of the season, there are a lot of playoff teams that kind of limped into the playoffs.
You're right.
Like normally it's like you see teams, it's like, okay, they're hot, they could possibly make noise. I'm talking limping into the playoffs. Tampa Bay, Dallas, Miami, they're in a whole heap of trouble right now. Even the Ravens. So are we going to see some of these guys come back and get healthy? Are we going to see them come out and kind of get things moving again? Because at this point, it just looks like there's teams like the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Bills, San Francisco. Who would you say? Yeah, Philly. They're going to be on a bye, but it's like they just seem to be heads and shoulders above these other teams. So it's like, how competitive is it going to be? That's honestly what I'm looking for. And then just the injuries. Will Lamar play? A lot of people are saying it doesn't even matter if he plays, they're going to lose anyway. I know you like to hear that, but I mean, that's just tough when you don't even know yet if your quarterback's going to be able to go. He hasn't played in a while. I mean, that's a tough
Month.
situation to be in. So we'll see. And I mean, it's just a lot of teams that are heading into the playoffs where it's like, okay, is it a situation where they're just grateful to be here? Now they can focus, or will we just see more of the same?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think the conclusion of the season lets us with some more questions and answers. And I think last year was so good, the wild card and divisional round. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Like some of the best rounds we've probably seen in the last decade, with just how competitive it was, the parity, how teams went back and forth, and you didn't know who was going to win, and some of the upsets that happened. So, I mean, this year, like you said, a lot of teams limped into the playoffs. So, I think that's going to be really interesting to see in the wild card round. But let's start. Let's talk some picks now with the wild card round and who we're going to take in these games. So, Craig, I'll let you start it off. Seattle and San Fran. Who you got?
Got to go with San Francisco. And they've, as you said, they haven't lost since Garoppolo went down. They're really tough. And yeah, Seattle, I'm just not so impressed. They played the Chiefs a couple weeks ago. Chiefs just completely steamrolled them. Their offense sputtered. So I'm just not impressed with them. I think overall, just in terms of a roster, San Francisco is just much better, way more across the board. So I'm picking San Francisco to handle that one for sure.
And then Los Angeles versus the Jaguars.
That is interesting. I know. Gosh, I think with the Chargers, they haven't impressed me at all. I think Jacksonville does have something special going. I did not think Trevor Lawrence performed well in this last win over Tennessee. He went kind of absent in that second half. The defense definitely carried them to that victory. But I do think Jacksonville, they have something special going just with their team. The way they've come on the second half of the season, put themselves in this position, they just keep winning. So I'm going to pick Jacksonville in that one.
Okay. And then Miami and Buffalo.
Got to go with Buffalo in this one. I think they're definitely on a warpath to be representing in the AFC Championship, and they've just got a lot of motivation and support behind them.
All right. And then New York, Minnesota.
You know what? I haven't really watched New York that much this season. So they're one of the teams where it's like I was looking at the standings heading into this. I really never saw them as a team where it's like I think they're going to win a Super Bowl this year. I know they've been quietly kind of playing good football, but I like Minnesota. I like their receivers. I think I'm going to pick the Vikings.
Okay. Going with Vikings. All right. Two more. Baltimore, Cincinnati.
Cincinnati for sure. They've been red hot. I thought it's a tough situation they were in to close the season. They've already, I mean, they just beat the Ravens. Yeah, they lost earlier, but they are just playing a lot better now. I'm going to pick Joe Burrow every time. So going with the Bengals.
All right. And then Dallas, Tampa Bay.
I'm going to pick Dallas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think with Tampa Bay, they've just been so disappointing. Just something's off with them. Some people say, oh, Todd Bowles, he's got that defense going. They're playing well. But then offensively with Brady, it's just like I just think it's a complete facade around him right now. I know it sounds like bad for me to – I'm not saying Tom Brady isn't good. I'm saying he hasn't been mobile. The offense isn't gelling. They're struggling. It's like who will struggle for 3 quarters, then you're relying on some game-winning drive so everyone can say how great he is. It's like where has the 4-quarter offense been for Tampa Bay all season? I haven't seen it. It's hard for me to pick the Cowboys over them, but Tampa Bay's been so disappointing all year long. It's just a losing record coming out of that division. I'm just not impressed.
Interesting picks. So you heard it here. Those are Craig's top 6 picks. So we'll see how it turns out, what his record will be at the end.
Yeah, what about you?
All right, so I'll throw it to Craig. Craig can ask me as far as the matchup. So the first one was Seattle.
Yeah, so Seattle and San Francisco. Who you got now?
Yeah, I got San Fran. I think they just got too much talent. I like the weapons that Seattle has. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. Geno Smith just had one of the best passing seasons in Seattle history, believe it or not. Beat him in passing yards for the most. That's incredible feat. But I just think San Fran's head and shoulders different and above Seattle, and I think that's just going to be replicated this weekend. Too many weapons for their defense to handle. I like Tariq Woolen, their cornerback, but I just don't think they have enough to stop them. Christian McCaffrey, Debo's back now, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, Elijah Mitchell out there in the backfield backing him up. They just got too many weapons. George Kittle. Yeah, I got San Fran.
And then the AFC side, the Chargers and the Jaguars.
I'm going to go Chargers. I know you haven't been impressed, but I think Herbert's that dude. And I like Trevor. I think Trevor has a very, very, very bright future. But that defense won that game. I watched the whole game. They don't get that fumble. I don't think they win. Yeah, I don't think they win. So I want to see Ken Trevor, biggest game probably his NFL career so far because he's playing meaningful football now. Can he step up? Obviously, everybody has off games. Burrow just had an off game against the Ravens. Trevor kind of had an off game. Can he come back? Can he, go against a pretty good defense in the Chargers? I think it's going to finally get Joey Bosa back and then have Khalil Mack. Can he perform against them? And I think Herbert, Mike Williams did get hurt in that game, was back, but they say he's expected to play. Both of these young quarterbacks, first playoff starts. So I think this is going to be one of the better games of the weekend is the Chargers and the Jaguars because both never played in the playoffs, both first primetime big starts. I can't wait to see, but I'm going to roll with Chargers.
Yeah, and that was kind of not a playoff atmosphere, but there was pressure on him. But I just think he was playing the Titans. They just did not look good.
No.
But who was the team that Trevor Lawrence had that kind of big comeback against this year? I know
Ravens.
That was the Ravens?
Ravens.
Yeah, so he has had a big game like that. But as you said, this playoff, that's a whole different stage that he's going to be on. So very interesting then. Yeah, what about the Giants and the Vikings?
Yeah, I'm going
to Tell me a little bit about the Giants.
Yeah, I'm going to go upset here. I'm going to pick the Giants. I like Minnesota. I like their team. I mean, I know I'm going to get flack in the comments, but I told you, it's just for me, you either have that guy or you don't. I don't think Kirk Cousins is that guy. It's not saying that Daniel Jones is that guy, but I just believe more in Brian Daboll and what they're doing. I like their weapons, Minnesota. Justin Jefferson is a freaking dog. He's probably one of the best receivers in the game. Top 1, top 2, at least, easily. And they got Dalvin Cook, they got Adam Thielen, they got TJ Hawkinson. But I just feel like in those primetime moments, he just folds up too much, too often for me. All the losses have been blowouts by better teams. And the Giants are playing them for the second time this year. And as far as their team and who they got, for me, it's the number one receiver. So Kenny Golladay last game had a big reception for a touchdown against his former teammate in Darius Slay. So can that get him going? Coming to the game, he had like 4 catches for 55 yards all season. So, I mean, the biggest thing for the Giants, I think, going into next season is getting that number one receiver to pair along with Daniel Jones and a Saquon Barkley, because then you take off the carries off of Saquon, you keep him fresher as he starts to, get a little bit older. He's still dynamic, but we know he's had an injury history. So that's the biggest thing for me. Can their receivers win on the outside against their corners, which I think is very doable, and their defense has not been all that good this year for Minnesota. So that's going to be the biggest thing. Can the receivers win? Can they get an early start to the game? But I'm going to go upset. I'm going to go Giants.
And then Bengals and Ravens playing for the third time this season, first time ever in the playoffs. Yeah. What are you thinking about in this one?
Yeah, it's a lot here. Ravens are being coy about Lamar Jackson. We don't know what's really going on with them. I want him to play. I do. I want a team fully vested. I want a team that's fully in it. I want a team that's fully healthy, because then, if we were to win, it's not no excuse. We want fair and square. So I want him to play. For us, I know everybody's like, oh, well, they came out with a vanilla. If you don't want to show them all the plays, if you have to play them again next week. They weren't trying to score in the second half because of this and this. Look, man, I'm tired of excuses. Y'all play too much. Our right guard got hurt because y'all passing too much. Why are we passing the ball? I say this every week. Craig knows. 42 passes to like 16 runs. We didn't start running again until the fourth quarter. I get we're a spread offense, but I'm telling you, man, they come out with that same BS game plan that they had against the Ravens this upcoming week, we're going to lose. If they come out and they try to do some balance, get a ball to Joe Mixon, mix it up, stop putting all the pressure on Burrow. We know he's an elite quarterback. We know he's one of the top 3 in the game, but come on, bro. Like, you're doing too much. So my key in that game is defense played outstanding. 4 turnovers last game, and they had a strip sack for a touchdown. Your defense can't play no better. But you need to mix up the run. If they do that and they're balanced, put all that pressure on Burrow, and the offensive line can continue to have some success they've been doing, they'll win.
Yeah. How many wins in a row do they have right now?
8.
8. Yeah. So they're on fire.
Yeah.
But you still don't think they've reach that offensive balance.
The pinnacle?
Yeah.
No, you haven't. You can't. You go do that against you guys, KC but you're not going to win.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it. And now the last 2 games, and they're on. And see, everybody doesn't watch the game. Real quick before we go to the next team. Our last 2 games, we've played terrible in the second half. We had 3 points.
Sure.
We didn't get a single first down until 8 minutes left in the third quarter. 8 minutes third quarter. We never got another first down. Then we go against the Patriots the week before, right? We are up 22-0. We nearly lost. If our defense, Von Bell doesn't force the fumble, we lose the game. We didn't get any points in the second half. Burrow throws the ball 52 times. What are we doing?
Yeah. No, you're right. So
run the ball.
Not only are they not getting points in the second half, they're just passing the ball that gives the other team more time. And so, yeah.
3 and out, and you're just doing 3 straight passes when you have people this real quick before we transition. 24-7 lead at the break again, and you're passing the ball coming out. Why? You have a 17-point lead. Ain't the objective to take your starters out the game since you already won the game? The game came all the way down in the fourth quarter to the end. Yeah. Run the ball, get one big – that's all I'm saying. Run the ball, get one big drive, put 31-7, take the starters out.
Yep.
No, I'm the crazy one, though.
No, you're 100% right. And then the last one, though, Dallas and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay coming off that last loss. You've been critical of Dallas the entire time. First of all, what do you expect in this game with these teams? I think they've both been sloppy. It is a rematch, but I mean, who do you think is going to come out in this one?
Just sloppy, up and down all season long. Tampa Bay looked good in their last game prior to the losing to the Falcons against the Carolina Panthers. They had their best offensive production all season. Mike Evans had 3 touchdowns. Brady had over 436 yards passing. So I don't know. They're just up and down. I think Tampa Bay keys is, again, running the football, establishing it with Leonard Fournette and Rashad White, getting out to a fast start. That's going to be a big thing for Tampa Bay. Get out to a fast start. Don't fall behind. Stop waiting for Brady to engineer a game-winning drive, as you mentioned to Craig. Get out to an early start and win the game. The key for Dallas is going to be, can you be consistent? You look like this one week. Next week, you're throwing up 40. Another week, you're putting up 5-6 points. It's hard to get a gauge on them. But if I'm going to say who I'm going to go with, who I have more trust in, who's done it the longest, who's one of the best ever to do it, I'm going to go with Tampa Bay. I believe more in Brady when it comes to playoff time that he's going to be able to figure it out enough to win. And that's what I'm putting my money on. I don't trust Dak Prescott in the playoffs. He's 1-3, I think, or 1-4, whatever his record is. I don't trust him. So I'm going to go Tampa with the win at home. And the other one was Miami and Bills.
Skipped over that one.
I think I'm going to go Bills. Miami, I think, has a really good talent. They can run the ball well, but I think Raheem Mostert just got hurt. We don't know the status of Tua Tagovailoa, if he's going to play or not. They do have some studs in Jalen Waddle and obviously Tyreek Hill, but I just don't think they got enough. If neither their top 2 players aren't healthy, I don't think they can go in and win. If they were, they could put up a pretty good fight. But I'm gonna go Bills
for sure. And so outside of the Bengals game, I know you'll be watching that. Which one of those matchups excites you the most? Do you think it's going to be the best?
Yeah, I think Jaguars in Los Angeles. That's my pick. I just think that's the most exciting because again, you got 2 players that are getting their first career playoff starts. First time the team's been in the playoffs in a long time. I think 2017. I think it was for the Jaguars, and I think it was 2016 or 15 for the Chargers. I can't believe. Don't quote me on the Chargers one. I know the Jacksonville one is right though, but I think that's just exciting when you got 2 players who are trying to, not really establish themselves. They're established, but trying to get towards the goals they want to achieve, trying to get deep in the playoffs, trying to establish their teams and make it far. I think that's going to be the most intriguing matchup because you got 2 quarterbacks that can duel. Everybody raves about their arm talent, their arm strength, how mobile they are, how they can get out of the pocket and make big time throws. I think that's going to be the best matchup all weekend.
Yeah, and that Jaguar defense is tough. I mean, they're playing great together just as a team. I don't know if it'll be the best. The one that excites me is the Dallas and Tampa Bay. I just think it's going to be wild. I don't know what's going to happen. Those teams have been inconsistent, but I just think that's a big storyline right there. Just Brady into this point of his career, and then can Dallas finally pull off a big playoff win? We'll see about that one.
We'll see, man. That'll be a good one. And we'll get to talk about it Monday night, so we can instantly react to it actually next week. So that'll be a lot of fun. But a couple more thoughts before we wrap for today, guys. I'm going to be real quick on this one. Aaron Rodgers, more offseason drama. Leaves the field with his arm around his buddy, Randall Cobb, like this, holding his buddy. And says, you got to put an end to this carousel sometimes. Says, I don't want to hold any hostages. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Aaron Rodgers used to be one of my favorite players. I really love watching him play. This season is not all his fault. Had to deal with a lot of things, but they were in it towards the end. We know obviously Alan Lazard's not going to be back, but I just think, like, for me, you've done this 3-4 years in a row. You're like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna come back, and you just leave these hints and things. And I don't know if it's to stir up drama. I don't know if it's to get the fans on edge. But if you're a Green Bay fan, you have to be like, yo, I'm tired of this at this point. Like, either you're playing or you're not. He just signed a 3-year, $150 million deal where he's getting $50 million per annual salary. It's just like, bro, like, can we stop going down this roller coaster? Can we stop being put on this kind of whim that you have? Like, I don't know what it is. Like I said, you gotta do what's best for you. But it's just like, I would not every year want to just be put in this predicament as a fan. It's just like, let's just move on to Jordan Love. He's great. He's a future Hall of Famer. We all know that, probably first ballot. But just like every year, I don't want to have to go through this as a fan. I want to know that once you sign the deal, I'm going to have you for that set time. Like I was mentioning to you earlier, it's like Patrick Mahomes saying now, oh, I don't know if I'm going to come back after you just signed them to a 10-year deal. Like, just play out the whole contract. If you want to leave, then leave. At least give us some clarity. Like, at this point, you have to probably stop wanting to feel like, being left in the dark, obscurity. Like, I want some clarity. I want to know what you're going to do. And I just don't want to keep going through this every offseason.
Yeah, it gets old. You can maybe get away with it once or twice where it's like you're the starting quarterback, you're contemplating things. Okay, I'm coming back. The fans are excited about it. Okay, the next year. Okay, like I'm getting older. I'm coming back. The fans get excited about it. You do it after this crap season, and then you keep doing it year after year. As you said, people are like, what's going on really? Just come out and tell us.
What?
To put them through this potentially again, it doesn't work, especially after that disastrous just lost to the Lions, getting swept. Just all the disappointing losses they had this year. You can't do that anymore. The fans want to know. They want you to be transparent. It does not work after 2 times.
No, it don't. And I now I don't blame Devontae Adams for wanting to leave. It's just like, bro, you've been doing this every year. I don't know what you're gonna do. So hey, I'm gonna do what's best for me. I'm gonna play with my best friend, Derek Carr over there with the Las Vegas Raiders, and I'm gonna just go there. Like I like at some point it gets old. It's just like, okay, bro, cool. Like you're gonna keep over and over. I'm not gonna keep wasting my time. So I just think it's old at this point, and I think it just gets annoying, and it's just almost to a point like, if that's what you're gonna do, cool. It's just like, stop leaving this in the dark though with it and conjuring this up every single summer, every single off season. It just gets old, and I think a lot of fans are at that point. I would be if I was a fan, and we'll see what happens, obviously, but it just gets old. But to more kind of can't think of the word, but to more exciting subjects, I guess. Lions and Jets. I was impressed with both teams this year. Jets, obviously, they didn't get in. They weren't close. They were 7-10, I believe, but they showed a lot of promise. I think they got a good lockdown corner in Sauce Gardner, who's only going to get better going into the next couple of seasons. CJ Mosley is really good for them. Quentin Williams on the defensive line has really shown out and really gotten a lot better year in, year out. Garrett Wilson shows he could be a number 1 receiver and target for them. We'll see what happens with Elijah Moore this year. But if I'm the Jets, you're QB away. Now, I know Zach Wilson came away and say, oh, well, we'll make his life hell if he comes here a veteran QB. But it's just like, bro, you're just not that guy. You're not. I get it. Second overall pick, it's hard to move on from him. But if I'm the Jets, I'm doing everything and anything in my power to move up from whatever position I am. I don't know if it's 15 or 16 to try to go get me a quarterback. This is the draft to do it. Or you could try the free agency route, but sometimes that don't work out and get a guy that's past his prime. So that's tough. But if you want to get a guy on a deal, I would get Jimmy Garoppolo potentially. He is injury prone, but he's a guy that can help your franchise that's already ready to really contend in the playoffs and go deep and far. But you need a quarterback. Jets are a quarterback away, and I think they're there. They got all the pieces they need. Lions are just a few pieces away on defense. I think they're good at the quarterback position with Jared Goff. I think he's good enough to get you to the postseason. They swept the Packers for the first time in a really long time. And I think you're starting to see a change of the guard in the NFC North, as I mentioned earlier. It happened to us, the Bengals. We won a couple division titles, obviously, in 2010s. But I think that Monday night game, nobody really talks about it a lot. But Monday night game, that hit on Juju Smith-Schuster, that Von Bell created, I think that was the change in the guard of our team and why we've had that turnaround, why we won back-to-back division titles. That game there, we were like we were like 2-14, or we were like we were a terrible record. We had we had double-digit losses. Just know that. And we went in there and I think Pittsburgh was either undefeated or Pittsburgh had a really good record. And that was the year they went and lost in the playoffs to the Browns. But they were really good that season. They were up above 12 wins. And we went in there at home, beat them, and that was a change of the guard. And I think that's what's going to happen in the NFC North, especially with this uncertainty with Aaron Rodgers. I think you're going to see a change of the guard with the Lions getting back up there and competing, contending for division crowns now. So just a few pieces away on defense. Great weapons in Jamison Williams. They got, they got DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams. I think they're going to be a team, really good head coach in Dan Campbell. Then they're going to be a team that's contending for division crowns in a very, very near future. And a team that you can't sleep on. That's not kind of your, that's a gimme game. I'm going to win that game. They're not that anymore. Lions are here to stay, and they just need a few more pieces on defense. And I think they're going to be in the playoff berth very soon.
Yep, I agree with the Jets. You cannot compete at that level they want to without a star quarterback.
Yeah.
And when you're a team like them, it's like you had a good season. You're happy about it. You're happy about the pieces. But then you look over at the teams that are still in it, and you're like, we need that quarterback. We need that. And that's what makes it so exciting. So getting a young quarterback, that'd be huge. And I just really like the way the Lions closed out the season. They knew they didn't have an opportunity to get in the playoffs, but they had aggressive play calling. They played really well. And it is a statement to specifically get that win over the Packers at Lambeau,
knock them
and
out.
have that changing of the guard you talked about. So I thought offensively they were really good this season. DeAndre Swift continues to be a great player for them. But I thought the play calling was confident and aggressive. They took it to him. They closed it out. Didn't let Aaron Rodgers get a chance to get the ball back. And, I mean, neither of those teams are in the playoffs now, but who do you think is more confident moving into the future? That's the question. I think Detroit's
I say
pretty
Lions.
happy.
Yeah, I say Lions for sure.
I mean, many people didn't think they were going to be this good this year, but I mean, they did a lot of things offensively. They put up a ton of points and just had an exciting style.
They had a great turnaround. They were 1-6 at one point, and they finished 9-8. So I mean, that's a great finish to the season. It's unfortunate that they couldn't get in, but I think they have a lot of momentum going into next season and what they've built and what they're doing. And yeah, I would feel more confident as a Lions fan than a Jets fan. I mean, Jets, obviously you got the pieces, but it's like your quarterback situation is still unknown. Lions, okay, I'm only a couple pieces away, and we're in this thing. We're gonna be back in the postseason. So I would be more confident as a Lions fan.
Yeah, I agree, especially with just the status and just the frustration seen by Green Bay. It's like normally they're kind of the gold standard in that division. They wouldn't let the Lions get into their head, but they completely crumbled in that game. Yep. So I think Lions fans will be happy about that, and there is a lot to move forward to.
Yeah, there is, and we'll see next year. But that's definitely some exciting storylines. But to kind of wrap up the show for today, last topic is kind of just Lamar Jackson. Will he suit up? Again, Ravens have been kind of coy about it. We'll see what happens. But I don't know, man. Do you think there's something bigger going on there? Do you think it's have to do with his contract? Harbaugh has kind of been like, I don't know what's going on with him. Not really many major updates the last couple of weeks. Do you think it's something kind of bigger there?
That's a great question.
Yep.
I think something's going on. I mean, he showed some major frustration once he got that injury and came out. Something you typically didn't see from him.
Yep.
He seemed genuinely frustrated with something going on just around the offense, around the team, around his plays, how they're running things. So we'll see. I mean, I know the fans want to see him back in there, but we haven't gotten that indication that he wants to or he's trying to. It has been kept quiet. So I'm interested to see it. I think it'd be great. You, as a Bengals fan, want to see him out there.
I do.
So hopefully he will be. What'd you say? It's been like 3 or 4 weeks at this point. 4 weeks with that knee injury.
Yep.
So we'll see. I mean, I think he could play. It's just what's going to be the best situation for him. Is it going to potentially put it at risk? We've seen that in the past. I think
you're right.
Was that RG3?
RG3
came out. Yeah,
you're right, and he messed up his whole career.
So yeah, I mean, even if it's sit out 1 more week, let's try to get this win. But that's the other thing. You don't really even want to project. Okay, he'll be back potentially in the conference championship. This is 1 game at a time territory right now. So it is week to week. So we'll see. I'd like to see him at least dress out, get out there, But hey, if he's not 100%, he wants to wait another week. Perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I thought you brought up a great point. I didn't even think about just the RG3 injury, how that significantly changed his career. Was never the same guy. So I think that's important also to keep in mind. Obviously, I want the man to play. I want him to be at full strength, but I mean, he has to think about that too because he's due for a contract. He wants to get his money. He's looking for the guaranteed. And sometimes you gotta last 2 years he's been injured. So I mean that's like you just said, that's something to think about. For the long-term longevity of your career and securing that back for you and your family. Is it worth just playing in that one playoff game that could potentially alter some things? Something to think about.
Yeah, Bengals are a physical team.
Yeah. So I mean, I thought you brought up a great point.
But that RG3 one, I still remember it. It's like his knee was so obviously compromised before the game. Everyone knew it. And then it's just like he's sitting there trying to play like at 50%, and then that injury puts him back that long. So it's like, where's his knee at? I think he's going to make a wise decision in this.
Yeah, I think you got to. And then we seen, not to bring it up, but we seen what happened the other Monday night. And I think players are going to be more cognizant of that and when they make decisions and when they do
we've
what's
seen
best
what
for
happened
them.
to Tua all season. Same sort of thing.
Yeah, you got to do what's best for you too at the same point. And we know it's a team game, but at the same time, you got to do what's best for you and your family because that's what you're going to have at the end of the day. So I get it. I do want him to play, but hey, if he makes a decision that he's going to do what's best for him and he think that's the best decision going forward for his career, got to respect it. But we'll see, man. But that's all we got for you guys today, man. Another fun show. Sorry if it was a little too long, but we love talking on the mic here. Had to break down a lot of things from all football, and we'll definitely be back next week. And we appreciate you guys tuning in.
For sure, glad to be back. We'll have all our content getting going for good next week.
Yes,
full slate of shows.
Yes, so make sure you tune in to scoreatl.com. Craig will be back with his Georgia Prep Sports show. Drive for the state title. So that'll be back. My show will be back as well next week with women's basketball and all women's sports. And then obviously we'll be here every Tuesday to break down all football. And, we'll start getting some other sports as we transition into, basketball season too. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you guys in the next one.